ليش ساكت؟ ليش قاعد؟ متوتر؟ جدا. خايف؟ يمكن. معصب؟ فاقع معي. حزين؟ ليش ساكت؟ ليش قاعد؟ إذا أنا ساكت فعدوي مش ساكت. إذا أنا قاعد فعدوي مش قاعد. عدوي في المستشفيات، عدوي في الأرض، عدوي في السماء، عدوي في المدارس، عدوي عم بقتل، عدوي عم بغتصب. ليش ساكت؟ طبعا أنا زي كل واحد فيكم، يعني من لما بلش شهر أكتوبر مش عارف أعيش، مش عارف أشتغل، مش عارف أعمل أي شيء. عم بحاول أساعد بس مش عارف how to be most effective، كيف أكون أكثر فعالية. هل اللي أنا عم بعمله كافي؟ بقدر أعمل إشي أكثر؟ شو عم نعمل؟ طبعا زي الجميع بلشت أخبار 12 ساعة باليوم، أحاول إني أفهم شو عم بيصير، شو دوري، شو أسوي. طبعا يعني بدقيقة الصمت لو كل واحد فينا حاول يستحضر المشاهد اللي شافها للفظاعة والإبادة الجماعية اللي عم بتصير بحق أهلنا، ما بتكفي الدقيقة للأسف. عمر كامل ما بكفي للحزن والشناعة اللي صارت فينا. نضلنا ساكتين؟ نضلنا قاعدين؟ شو بدنا نعمل؟ ممتاز، عم نوعي نفسنا، عم نكون على قنوات السوشيال ميديا، عم نحضر أخبار، عم نشارك بالسوشيال ميديا بأنه ما نسمح انه نتسكت. يعني بكون الواحد فوق ما انه هو عم بنقتل، بتكون لسه كمان السوشيال ميديا تشانلز زي اللي كنا يعني بنتمنى نشتغل فيهم بهالزمانات زي جوجل وفيسبوك وامازون، انه فعليا عم بسكتونا، مش عم بخلونا حتى نقدر نحكي. هيك عم بيصير فينا، بدنا نصير نتحايل على الالجوريثم وسوالف وغير بروجكت نمبس من امازون يعني وجوجل. يعني فللاسف يعني بتزيد على الالم الم. طبعا اللي بلش يشارك على السوشيال ميديا المعاناة اللي عم بتصير مع اخواننا في غزة، الله يعطيك العافية. واللي ما بلش شو بتستنى؟ واللي وقف ترى ما وقف العدوان. انا بحيي جامعة الحسين انهم استضافونا اليوم. جامعة الحسين مش ساكتة، مش قاعدة. بحيي الهيئة الخيرية الهاشمية على الاير دروبس، الانزالات الجوية لمساعدة اخواننا بالشمال والجنوب. احنا محتاجين، يعني صرنا بنحكي حتى بالاكل والشرب كمان، طبعا فوق القتل والاغتصاب وكل الاجرام. طبعا في طرق كثيره للمساعده، السوشيال ميديا، صمود اللي كمان يعني بتبرعوا للهيئه الخيريه الهاشميه كمان. بس هل هون بنتهي دورنا ولا بنقدر نعمل كمان؟ فانا عم بفكر شو بقدر اعمل. عرفت عن شخص اسمه بول بيجر، بلش شيء اسمه تك فور بالستاين، مكان تقدر توظف مهاراتك وجهودك لخدمة قضيتك. عندي سؤال، كم واحد فيكم بيشتغل فرونت اند؟ ارفع ايدك. I have a question for everybody. If you are front end engineer, like to raise your hand for those who are online. اللي back end experience ارفع ايدك. اللي dev ops ارفع ايدك. اللي manager ارفع ايدك. researcher, writer, content editor, translator، كلاتنا بنعرف عربي وانجليزي وفي منا بيعرفوا هيبرو. احنا كل السكيلز اللي بدنا اياها موجوده بهاي الغرفه، موجوده عندنا. تك فور بالستاين هو بيجمعنا كلياتنا، بيجمع مهاراتنا في مكان اللي هي الديسكورد شانل اللي احنا بنستخدمها حاليا، عشان نوظف هاي المهارات لافكار تترجم الى مشاريع تخدم قضيتك. فانت ممكن تشارك بانك تدعم بمؤهلاتك، او اذا انت بتعرف عن مشاكل بتعرضوا لها اخواننا وممكن نساعد، يعني بحكم موقعنا الجغرافي وانهم اهلنا، فاحنا ممكن نكون بنعرف اكثر من اي حدا ثاني شو وجعهم كيف ممكن نساعد. فالديسكورد شانل بسمح لك انك تعرض افكارك، تنزل فولنتير بوست، اشياء تطوعيه بتقدر انت تيجي تحكي هذا المشروع بده فرونت اند انجينير، انا بقدر اوظف مهاراتي بهذا الشكل. فاحنا اليوم رح نساعد الناس اللي they're not familiar with Discord how to get into the channel. We're going to have a fireside chat with Paul Biggaer اللي أسس Tech For Palestine، ورح يكون معي سيد رامي كرمي where he's going to help us to dive in his experience. بعديها we're going to demo some of the projects that we have been working on ب Tech For Palestine، وفي منهم رح يكون recorded، في منهم رح يدخلوا البروجكت ليدز اللي هم زيكم فعليا زي كل واحد فينا، بس كان عندهم فكرة يعني تساعدوا مع Tech For Palestine، اللي يجمعوا شباب وبنات يساعدوهم بالإشي اللي محتاجينه. بعدين هباش is gonna walk us through Discord عشان نشيل هاي العقبة تبع الديسكورد وبعرفش أتعامل معاه إنه كيف بقدر أنا أبلش بماي فيرست تاسك فعليا. وبعديها رح نترك مجال للكيو اند اي، ورح يكون في كيو اند اي بعد ما نحكي مع بول كمان. بدكم تسمحوا لي بس ممكن يكون معنا English audience، ف I'm going to translate a little bit here. Thanks everyone for those who are attending us online and any non-Arabic speaker here in the audience. I was just highlighting the importance of us taking action about what's happening, and I would also add short-term action is not as good as long-term action. I'm not looking for a reaction. I'm not looking for short-term. Short-term ends. And unfortunately, our struggle is a 75-year struggle here, and it's only getting worse. Today, we're going to be having a fireside chat with Paul, as he's going to walk us through Tech For Palestine, how he started it, his experience, and we're going to have Rami, who's going to help us dive into his experience. Then we're going to go through project highlights and ways to engage, a walk through the Discord channel, and then we're going to have some Q&A. Rami, if you can join me, please, here. Paul, can you hear me?
Yes, how are you?
Hi, it's good to see you, Paul. Last time I met Paul, it was in California, in the Silicon Valley. I've moved there. أنا مهند خصاوني. My name is Muhannad. I moved to the US 5 years ago, and that's where I met.
Can we ask Paul to turn on his video, just to make sure he's on the screen?
Yeah, it was shared earlier. If Osama can help with that. Paul, can you still hear us?
Yeah, and I'm on video on my end.
Yes, amazing. So last time you and I met in the Silicon Valley, I was impressed by Tech For Palestine, and as I was telling you, that Jordanians are pretty passionate about the Palestinian struggle and seeking freedom for the Palestinian people. So here's my Jordanian people. We would like to learn more about your experience, about how Tech For Palestine came to happen. I have Rami Karmi here with me. He's curious too about your experience, and he has some questions too. So we're going to start with that, and then we're going to take some questions from the audience.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. It's a delight to be here.
Hi, Paul. How are you? We're really thankful for the opportunity of having you among us. Can I ask the people in the background, can you please just make sure Paul's screen is pinned so that we have him on the screen? Let's start with a quick background, Paul. First of all, we know most of... Is he pinned? Okay. Just a second. لا هذا ايش صار؟ طيب ايش صار؟ خلاص it's fine. Let's keep it full screen. Okay, sorry about that, Paul. So هذا ايش بيعمل قاعد؟ See what tech does. خلاص. Okay. So let's start all by some context. I think the audience is very curious to know what happened. And before we start with what happened before setting up Tech for Palestine, we connected maybe 5-6 months ago. And back then we were heading one of the top unicorns in the region and in the world, basically. And you went out with this blog post where the likes of Sequoia and what have you were all mentioned very clearly. You called out the polarity that is happening, which we all thought was maybe part of only this part of the region. And apparently it's way more rooted even in Silicon Valley. Can you tell us a bit more on because of the context as well, on what your unicorn was about and what happened when you actually kicked this off? And maybe just give us some context on why are you doing that? Is it, I'm sure I know the answer, but I want this context to be very clear to the audience. Is it related to the Irish roots and being colonized, or is it really about justice? Tell us a bit more on that, and let's start the discussion with this.
Absolutely. So when I wrote the blog post, so that was really the starting point for me in this. The blog post was sort of what crystallized into Tech for Palestine. And when I was writing it, it was very much I had descended into despair about what is happening in Palestine and our collective inability to do anything about it. It felt very powerless. You know, I personally felt very powerless, and I felt like, how is it that there is a genocide happening in the world today, and you know, we are not standing up for it? And in particular, I saw the investor class in Silicon Valley. I saw the people of Silicon Valley and of tech standing up for the wrong side, standing up for the side that was dropping the bombs, and they were talking about the you know, the propaganda that Israel was sharing, and you know, it felt very coordinated, very obvious, a lot of misinformation. And at the time, I was running a small startup called Darklang. My previous startup, Circle CI, is a unicorn, and I left. You know, that's something I started in 2011, and I had stepped down from it in 2015, and I was running this project Darklang for about 7 years, and had a lot of highs and lows. And I had been in Silicon Valley for 10 or 12 years. I was connected to all these people, and these were people who, you know, I've been to their house, I've socialized with their families, you know, the usual networking things that you do. And so to see them say this sort of, you know, the awful dehumanizing things that they were saying. In some cases, they were merely pro-Israel or you know, posting Israeli flags. In some cases, they were, you know, they were saying things like "kill them all" or "flatten Gaza." I don't remember the exact quotes, but you know, that general type of thing. So it was something where you see that coming from Silicon Valley, and you start to connect it to a lot of things that are going on in the world. You know, in the US, you know, what we would call maybe extractive capitalism, or you know, the fact that there's so many homeless people, and so many people in Silicon Valley are, you know, fighting the existence of homeless people, not from a perspective of we must get these people homes, but from a, you know, we must remove them from sight and push them out. You know, there's a lot of connections between the sort of politics that happens in Silicon Valley and the politics that is, you know, the US side of the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. So I don't know if necessarily it was, you know, purely I'm Irish, and I don't even think that the Irish situation is a sort of a zealous one-sided thing. I think honestly it's rooted in a sense of justice that you get from being a colony, as opposed to just, you know, always siding with them. But yeah, that's kind of how we got there. It's you know, seeing something that's wrong in the world and seeing an opportunity to address it. And in particular, this is something that was wrong in the world where the community and identity that I've been part of for over a decade was doing a lot of the harm.
Thanks. So walk us through the minute you decided this is the time we do Tech for Palestine. And I'm sure there were others that were going through the thought process that you went through. But you were maybe the most obvious that called out what's happening. And just walk us through the decision point. And did any of the others connect with you when you decided to go through this path? And maybe follow it up with what happened after the decision. I'm very peculiar to understand how you were able to have a blog post, a feature on TechCrunch with this polarization taking place.
Yeah. So the process was a little bit gradual. After I posted on December 14th, and Tech for Palestine launched on January 2nd. So this is about a 2-week process. And what happened is you know, a lot of people reached out to me. A lot of people saw my blog post and they said, you know, we're working on something like this. We're doing something that's similar to this. Can you help us, or, you know, let's work together, or let's look at this project. And basically we put them all into a Discord, and it's the same Discord that we're in today. And it ended up being about 25 people. And of the 25 people, about 80% were Palestinian or Arab or Muslim, you know, Jordanians, Egyptians, diaspora, Palestinians, obviously. And everyone was working on projects for, you know, to help Palestine in some way, and they were all technical projects, and some were focused on advocacy, some were focused on investigation, like looking at the connections between VC and Zionism broadly, a lot of boycott stuff. So you know, very similar projects to what we're doing now. And those you know, with the 25 people, we said, like, okay, what are we doing now? Is this something that we want to open up more broadly? We want to get more people involved. We want to get volunteers and connect people to our projects. And that sort of crystallized over a couple of days. And then when we launched on January 2nd, we did a typical launch. You identify the messaging you want to make, the positioning you have, you know, the actions that you want people to take. In our case, it was join our Discord and volunteer to connect to these projects. And you know, obviously reach out to journalists, and we reached out to dozens of journalists, obviously, and the TechCrunch one is the one that stuck. That's what happens sometimes. And it's funny because even though you look at our TechCrunch launch, you know, it was very heavily edited in, you know, it included every Zionist talking point, you know, very much what was happening in the media in January. It was, honestly, it was quite lucky that article came out, but it was, you know, something where over the course of over a decade, you make a lot of contacts, and then you reach out to them, and the you know, it's very, very much formed in a very kind of startup centric kind of idea of, you know, let's put an idea out there, let's see what happens, let's figure out how to iterate and how to go with it. And that was what happened when we initially set up the Discord. It was just, let's figure out what this is. And then once the Discord launched, again, it was the same thing. You know, all of a sudden there's 1,000 people there. Now we have to figure out what we're going to do with these 1,000 people who've just shown up.
Excellent. A quick disclaimer, of course, everything we do now or on Discord or during the activity that you're doing, we all know we won't be doing enough to support. But that does not mean we shouldn't do what we can do. And this is an attempt to make change. And what I love about it is that it leverages our skills. We put it to work. And I'm sure being someone set up in the ecosystem, especially the DevOps ecosystem and what have you with Circles AI and what have you, you managed to pull in some threads and put together a nice group of people that put the starting points behind the Tech for Palestine. That was in January. Walk us through, what does it look like today? How many are on board? How many projects are there? I'm sure Mohammed will walk us through that in details, but just give us some lens on maybe enticing the audience online and physically and online on what would they expect? What are we expecting from them if they join, once they join? And I hope everyone joins. What can they do? And how does this look like?
Yeah, so it's when we launched in January, what we immediately got was just thousands of people joining. So 1,000 people joined in the first day. We're up to about 5,000 people now, and a lot of that happened at the very start. People being very excited and having projects and wanting to volunteer with projects. And so what we did initially was we set up this, how do you handle the influx of people? What do you do when you have that many people? And we set up, what you might expect: notice boards, places where people could announce their intention to volunteer, what skills they had. And we went through a couple of different iterations there, using the infrastructure that we had, which was Discord. So there was notice boards, and there was chat rooms, and there was, connect to people over here. And what we found, over that time was, a very sort of like lossy process. People want to get involved, but they don't know what they need. They don't know what they don't know what the time commitment is. Kind of, volunteer projects that I think activists across the board have, or volunteer problems that all sort of activists have. So what we've evolved to now, we're a little bit 3 months in, is a lot more hands-on, a lot more incubator. And in fact, we've migrated over to this in the last month or so. And so what we're doing is we're really trying to be hands-on with projects that are dedicated and that are putting the time in. So we're, when you join, one of the things we'll do is we'll add you to our volunteer database. And when people need volunteers, we will try to actually go through the volunteer database and say, this is the person you should reach out to. This is the person you should reach out to, and encourage people to, to interview them and really like bring them into the team, rather than simply having here's a notice board. You can join. And I think the focus really now is on how can we take these projects and help them scale up, because it's not simply about, we make a project, we make a website, and on this website, you can learn some information. It's really about distribution. It's really about scale and growth. How can you take this thing that you're doing and get it to not just the people who are interested in it now, but how can you bring it to be something where hundreds of thousands of people or millions of people learn it? And you can see this with a project like Boycat. Boycat is something where you could just say, there's an app, we built an app and now you can boycott. But really they're focused on growth. How do we bring this to as many people as possible? How do we make it as easy as possible for people to use? How do we get people to share it? And we're using, techniques that are pretty standard in Silicon Valley, phrases like product-led growth, product market fit, minimal viable product, all that sort of thing, because these are the tools that have been successful at building scalable things. And really what we want here for these projects is scale, getting it to as many people as possible and getting that advocacy or boycotting or whatever it is to reach as many people as possible.
I'm sure Mohammed will be walking us through the number of projects that are coming out of this region, but just like Boycat, what are maybe the the projects that you really like, maybe some of them that you can highlight for the audience, just to get an idea on the projects.
Absolutely, and I think a lot of these projects will be, are presenting later in the program. So I'll give a brief overview. One that's not in our discussion later is October 7th Fact Check. October 7th Fact Check was the first project that we had that really hit it off. And what that project was going deep in each of the propaganda lies that Israel put out on October 7th. And the reason that we felt that was really important was it connected the dehumanization that Israel was doing or was attempting to do to actual fact-based situation, and was able to dive back through the misinformation and go back to who said it first, where did it get repeated, and this similar work was being done by folks like Mondeveiss and others, and you can see now that this sort of reporting has led to crisis at the New York Times, has led to a refutation of a lot of the things that were assumed to be said, or that were assumed to be true on October 7th, beheaded babies, that sort of thing. And that kind of project is the sort of thing where, when you bring a bunch of people together and then you bring their resources out and you drive it forward, it has a lot of capability to make change. There's some simpler projects, right? I've talked about boycotting, obviously, but one I really like is, and this isn't exactly one of our projects, but we help sort of in the broader ecosystem. The one I like to talk about is Birds of Gaza, which is a coloring exercise for children. Children can cut out and color in birds that represent a child that was killed in Gaza during Israel's campaign. And that idea of sort of simple fighting the dehumanization with children is like, it's a really beautiful idea, but it's also something that scales up very well. It's something where you can take it to a school, and the school can show it to the children, and the children's parents can then take part in the exercise, and everyone gets to understand what exactly is happening in a way that's not shouting on Twitter, that's not really susceptible to the sort of dehumanization or the sort of talking points that end up in the political debate. So we believe in quite a wide range of projects. There are many different ways to educate and advocate, and we really are here to support the ideas that people come up with to do that.
So very interesting, wide spectrum, as you mentioned. Some are simple, some are, but the impact is the main focus point. If I would ask you to wear the venture studio hat instead of incubator, do you have a wish list maybe to address the audience on some of the projects you hope someone can jump on board and create?
We do have a wish list, and in fact we're starting a little bit to focus on that wish list, to find project leaders to, in some cases, take over them, in some cases run them. One of my favorites, and possibly this is because I started it, is our anti-Palestinian VC list, keeping track of every VC that has been anti-Palestinian in their rhetoric or in their actions. Another one that I'm really interested in kicking off, and we're probably gonna do some part of this in Tech for Palestine, is having local teams to take part in boycotts. So we want the BDS standard. We're boycotting Starbucks, we're boycotting McDonald's, for example. We should have teams of people standing outside every McDonald's in every city, every Starbucks in every city, and really kind of driving that home. And this is something that takes, coordination, it takes operations, it takes logistics, it takes a lot of, online organizing. And it needs a lot of people to do that organizing, and it needs a lot of vision and a lot of just real effort. And so what one of the things that we're starting to do is put together project leaders to take over, to take some of these ideas and to run with them, so that we can connect our volunteers, our mentor network, to them, and so that they can succeed.
Paul, if you don't mind, I would like to ask the audience for a huge round of applause for the stuff that you guys are doing.
Thank you so much.
And maybe ask you before I hand over back to Muhannad, what is the call to action that you would like to address the audience with? So they're here today, they're interested, they all love what you guys are doing. They all want to, I see the fire in the belly, the eyes are shining and lit. And I'm sure everything you said resonated with every one of us. So I'm giving you the floor for a clear call to action for them just to move on before I hand over back to Muhannad.
Yeah, we are looking to connect to projects that are looking to make a big difference, to have a big impact. In particular, projects that are looking at scale and distribution and mechanisms to get the advocacy for Palestinians and for Palestine to a broad audience. And then we are also looking for volunteers to connect to projects that are already doing that. And there'll be a session later in the thing for how to do that. But I think the takeaway I would say is, come work with Tech for Palestine, think big, and together I think we can have an impact.
Another round of applause. Muhannad and Paul, I would like to thank you again for this opportunity, for bringing me on board to manage this. And I hope I can also be of support in any way, form, ever. And I hand it back to you.
Thank you. Paul, I have a question for you. So the blog post that went viral was called "I Can't Sleep." I would like to ask you, how's your sleeping going these days?
It's a little bit better. It's it's no longer I can't go to sleep. It's much more I wake up full of things to do. The anxiety is the same, but the quality of the sleep is slightly improved.
My second question is, last time we met, that was in February, and you were saying that the tide is shifting. When this first whole started, it was like really a big deal to even talk about that there's a genocide happening. And then you were saying that the tide was shifting. I have been in Jordan for a month now, and I'm not sure how things are over in the US and in the Silicon Valley. Do you feel like the tide is still shifting? Where are we standing today?
The tide has continued to shift. The major shift recently that I'll point to is the killing of the World Central Kitchen aid workers. That had a major impact in the West for reasons that I think many of us will not be particularly happy about and are very obvious to us. But it was nonetheless a shift. And I think it just continues all the time. It is in free fall. Or pro-Israeli opinion is in free fall, and we're seeing many more people step up and stand out. And I think even from February, I'm not sure we could have imagined we were going to get where we are now. But it keeps going.
That's amazing. Well, it's amazing that the tide is shifting, but it would be even better for this whole genocide to come to an end. I would like to bring it to the audience. If the audience have any questions for Paul, can the ushers help me back?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I can hear me now. I just have a question. At the beginning of the events on the 7th of October, I know that everybody was taken by the shockwaves globally. Maybe it's a different thing in the Middle East, globally, there was a shockwave that was created using media platforms and everything that created the impact on people once they listened to the horrific stories that were shared, which also impacted the way they positioned themselves politically when it comes to where they stand. Now, the question is, how is that different? Because I see that we have a pinpoint on the 7th of October, and then we have 3-4 months ahead, and then we have another pinpoint of 7 and 8 workers, which is also horrendous at the World Central Kitchen, that also almost took the same effect that was taken on the 7th of October, while everything in between is neglected. So we put the explanation that because there was a manifestation of a lot of media platforms working on the 7th of October to create a narrative, that is why that was the position people took. But they still took the same position with the 8 workers or the 7 workers in the World Central Kitchen 4 or 5 months later. And everyone in between, 35,000 people, 70,000 under rubbles or with heavy damages taken. Not the same impact. What do you think of that?
I think that there was a substantial movement in between. It's the killing of the World Central Kitchen workers, the impact that was, that followed that was a release of built up energy that had been building up over the 6 months. I think it is something where there were so many people changing the narrative, working to fight against the Israeli talking points, working to fight against the dehumanization of Palestinians. And it had been going on quite a while. There was a lot of smaller talking points that helped change the narrative. The killing of Hind, the girl and her family in the car by Israeli forces was one example. The New York Times falling apart in its after its article, Screams Without Words. Many other narratives and talking points had made significant change over that time. And I think that for, when you think about liberals in the West, the way that we tend to react to something is that it needs an event for a lot of people to change from one opinion to the other. And the narrative that builds up on the way, it pokes holes in the existing understanding of things. And if you started from a pro-Israeli understanding, it pokes holes like, there seem to be a lot of people dying. And, is this really necessary? It sort of like becomes a baseline of questioning. And then you have something that is extraordinary. You have a single event and the entire world or journalism catalyzes around this event in this case because it's a famous chef that everyone knows and they change opinion. I don't think it was the world merely ignoring the killing of all the Palestinians. I think that there was a lot of activists and a lot of people who had been fighting for that, and it needed, if it wasn't the killing of people in the World Central Kitchen, there was going to be another thing. And going forward, it will be another thing that we can't predict, that we can't point to right now, and that will frankly be a little problematic in the amount of attention that it gets relative to Palestinians that have been killed. I'm not sure that there's a lot we can do about that, unfortunately. That is sort of the way the West works, unfortunately.
Do we have another question? It's in the back. We can't hear you.
Okay, so back to the tech scene. So as you know, the Zionist entity is a tech hub in the world. Us volunteers are like, tiny people when compared to something so entrenched in the tech industry. Imagine we make a social media for the supporters of the cause. Then we alienate the rest of the population of the planet. How do we deal with this sort of predicament, or what can we do to not alienate the others, but to try and also push them towards our cause? Thank you.
You're right that there is a lot of Israeli tech, and there's also a lot of control of existing networks. I wrote about one yesterday about Meta and Lavender, and I think Meta and other social media networks are very much complicit in the situation. The thing is that a lot of these connections are weak. A lot of the strength that they have is based on the narrative. So post October 7th, there's a lot of Israeli workers or pro-Israeli workers within tech companies who were very loud, very angry, were able to shut down dissent very quickly. But as the narrative shifts, they lose the ability to do that. It no longer becomes as easy to say, oh, this is anti-Semitic. It no longer becomes easy to shut down, the people who are pushing back on what are we doing as a company. That narrative shift is important because it provides a baseline for more people to stand up and more people to call out what they're seeing, and it has impact across tech companies. The other thing is that a lot of that, it's not just the support that's weak. A lot of the Israeli economy is extremely, extremely weak. Companies are, often merely one quarter from entirely falling apart. The failing Israeli economy has shut down, a bunch of startups already. They're pushing for a lot of American investment in Israel to prop up those startups. And startups are things that are inherently very weak. It doesn't take a lot, it takes a missed quarter, it takes missed revenue. And these startups, their employees are fighting in Gaza, or now they're going to be fighting in Lebanon. They're in situations where it doesn't take a whole lot to knock them over. And this is true whether it's Google's support for Nimbus. It looks very ironclad. It looks like, why would they ever step out of this? It's $1 billion, but $1 billion doesn't matter that much to Google. Google makes $200 billion a year. And as it starts to be this huge part of the narrative about, for example, what No Tech for Apartheid is doing, what, Googlers, standing up, making noise, making it clear that there is actual cost to Google for doing this. And then as the narrative changes, and in the US, as the narrative becomes, oh, we're on the wrong side of this, Israel is bad, then that publicity that's been created around it is something that is much easier to knock over than we expect, or than it looks right now. So I think that actually the tech connectivity and especially the startup scene of Israel, it is much weaker than it actually looks, and it is it is pervasive, it is all over the place, but I think it is something that can actually be dislodged from its current things. And you mentioned creating a new social media network. Not a terrible idea. It's not going to take all of our people away from it. Away from existing social media networks. People will people are even staying on Twitter, even though it's gone in a terrible way. I think that there's a lot of room for hope, and there's a lot of ability to make change there.
Let's take a question from the online audience. Hiba, I know that Kira had a point to add. I'm not sure if she's still here. If not, we can have a question from the audience online?
You caught me just before I left. I just wanted to say this is a super inspiring event, and I'll hop on video just so everybody can. Hello. I just wanted to follow up on Paul's comment about communications and narrative and how critical it is to be out in public talking about this this world that we want to see and what that world looks like. It is a shame that it was the Western aid employees that were the ones that galvanized the next phase of this movement. We want a world where all of the lives in between matter all of the time, and they are just as recognized as, valued and beloved and important. And so I help with comms for Tech for Palestine. I welcome anybody that likes to tell stories, anybody that really feels called to keep this narrative out in front of people's understandings and perceptions and really make it a factor in the way businesses choose to do business. So hello, looking forward to getting to know more of you in the future. And now I have to run, so take care.
Thank you, Kira. Hiba, any questions from
Yep.
on the audience?
Yeah, actually, we have a lot of questions, great questions. So I will start with two ones that are directed to Paul. The first one is, what is next? Okay, you kicked, like the community and gathered various projects. How are you going to handle the organization? What is your vision for the community? And for when this war or genocide come to the end?
Yeah, so I think the idea is very much that this is a long-term initiative. People galvanize in the community to do something, right? It's not just having a community for the community's sake. It's very much about building projects that make change. And the focus that we're in now, we have built up a baseline of being able to launch projects, of being able to connect people to volunteers, of being able to advise projects and help them scale. That's really, where we're focusing at this moment. How do we take things that have potential to have impact and really drive them to that impact? And that's where we'll be focusing. We're only a 3-month-old organization, so it's very much changing in the exact day-to-day of what we're doing, but it's always fundamentally about what is the thing that we can do that can have the most impact, and that impact, sometimes it's short-term, sometimes it's long-term. We need to focus on both.
All right. The next question is, are you positioning TFP as anti-Hasbara community? And how will you cover the gap in terms of funding, considering the heavy budget spent on Hasbara?
Yeah, so that's a really interesting question, because the strengths of the Israeli movement versus the Palestinian movement are significantly different. Israel is someone who is trying to cover a deficit of public opinion with money and full-time dedicated resources, where the Palestinian movement, similar to a lot of different activist movements, is a lot more distributed, and a lot of the strength of the movement is that distribution. The fact that it's volunteers, the fact that it is people who are really mission driven, these are things that are a lot of the strength of volunteer organizations and of mission driven organizations. And I think that we aren't going to beat Israel by taking the exact same tactics that they are, because the tactics that they have are pretty sewn up, and they've been doing them for 75 years. They're getting people in key positions in Congress, in key positions in social media networks and in tech companies. That is something that is hard to do tomorrow, and it's hard to do next year. Whereas something that people can do today is shut down bridges. And that's something that they're doing very effectively, and something that they're doing on almost no budget. And I think it is worth leaning into this rather than looking over at what the Israelis are doing and what the Zionists are doing. It's a very we are both in very different situations, and the tactics that work for them are not going to be the tactics that work for us.
All right. The next question is, do you believe in fighting from within the giant FANG players?
Absolutely. The amount of press that No Tech For Apartheid is getting out of, 10, 20 people doing, doing protests is spectacular. That narrative plays out, and it helps people to see, there is something worth fighting for here, but also it helps them to see, they're standing up, they're getting arrested, they're doing the work, they're getting fired, that's not right. And it helps take people who are on the fence fully into the movement. So there's a lot of reasons to fight for, within tech companies. I've always been someone who doesn't work well within the belly of the beast. But there are people who do work well within the belly of the beast, and they, often they can find information about how it works. They can identify the individuals who are particularly problematic. They can identify the weak points and where to target. And I think that people can do very valuable work, both within and without.
Yeah. So moving to the next question. This is a question to you and to the university as well, like for everyone, which is reference to the most recent protests in several US states yesterday, and how some GOP representatives have, echoed to deal with these protests in a violent way. Doesn't this go against the US democracy and the Constitution? And what should we do about that? And how do you deal with this in appropriate, manner? And what is the TFP rules for this?
Well, TFP is fundamentally a nonviolent organization, and all of our advocacy is nonviolent. The fact that the other side is getting violent against protesters in the US is, it's not good, but it is a good step in the evolution that of change, because what happens with change, right? It doesn't fall over in one day. What happens is it goes through stages where and we saw this in October, where Israel is all powerful and you can't say anything to criticize it. But what starts to happen when that changes is that people that have allied themselves with this, I think people are talking about folks like Tom Cotton, who advocated for throwing protesters off bridges and skinning them alive and that sort of thing. He's very heavily allied to the Israeli lobby. And he's, his career is very much tied up in that sort of like GOP bloc, which is supporting that. As they start to lose control, they start to flail. And they start to go a little nuts, and we see the Israelis are going nuts at the moment, right? They're shooting at Iran, and they're starting to try a war starting to try to start a war with Iran. Why are they doing that? It's because they're losing, and as you start to lose, you start to do bigger and bigger gestures in order, take bigger and bigger risks in order to win. And then people see that, you start making mistakes, and it's exactly like that. Seeing the GOP and the pro-Israel lobby start to advocate for violence of protesters, that sends a signal to let's say the normal people in the middle are like, why are they doing that? That's not right. We shouldn't be advocating violence to anyone. And it's because of the advocacy and the narrative shift that has happened so far. It turns people into people who are flailing, and those flailing cause mistakes and brings more people to our side. And it just it is a natural part of the evolution, and having gotten here is good. The effects of it, obviously not good, same as the war with Iran. But, you know, the fact that we have gotten the narrative shift and so many people on the side of the Palestinians, you know, it is the natural reaction to that, and we shouldn't freak out when we start to see things like that happen. It is a sign that we are doing our job well.
Okay, back to you, Mohammed.
Heba, are we ready to start with the project showcase?
Yeah. Thank you, Paul.
Thank you, Paul.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
All right. Assalamu alaikum. Hello, everyone. I'm Heba, part of Tech For Palestine management team. أنا هحاول أتكلم عربي. بتكلم عربي مصري. So if you didn't get it, I know we, you know, like إحنا بوظنا العربي. So let me know. And I
نفهم مصري جدا.
Yeah, I can go back to English. So if you know, if this is more comfortable. Okay, so we have actually a list of amazing project showcase, and I think we will start with Boycat, and I think we have Adil. Adil, if you can, yeah, it's yours now.
Amazing. Okay, well, first off, before I even start, assalamu alaikum and hi, how's it going? Just 20 seconds of like major shout out and props to Tech for Palestine and the entire Tech for Palestine team. I think they don't get enough praise or gratitude because, you know, putting together something like this, along with, you know, managing thousands and thousands of people is incredibly difficult. And so major shout out to Paul and the entire Tech for Palestine team. And then obviously, thank you so much for the university for giving us a stage like this. But I'm here to talk about Boycat and kind of how we've kind of grown as a little business into something more of a larger movement. And so I'm very happy to share about Boycat itself. So before I even demo the product itself, Boycat is fundamentally a BDS application that you can get on your phone, iOS, Android. Sorry for the Huawei users. But for the most part, we are a barcode scanning app that allows you to scan any barcode and you get information on the product itself. So you can figure out whether it's a parent company or a subsidiary of a company that, you know, supports Israel. But we realize that there's way more to boycotting and the movement of boycotting than just scanning a barcode. And so we also noticed there's a bunch of like, you know, information all kind of spread out. There was so much misinformation spread out as well too. And understanding how you actually spent your money was really difficult because, you know, I think back in November, very much myself and my team, we felt very powerless in a way where at an individual level, we didn't feel like we could do anything. The US government, you know, wasn't complying with kind of what we believed in. The other governments around the world were very much, you know, anti-Palestinian, and that really hurt us. And so one thing we noticed was that if we could speak the same language that these giant corporations and the Israeli government were speaking, which is money, we'd be able to have a voice. And so that's kind of how Boycat came to start. It was a movement that we could understand and give purchasing power back to the individual at a very individual level. And as a community, as we grew, we could help divert money in a certain direction. And so thankfully, we just passed, I think, 200,000 total users, and we've already diverted almost $4.5 million from the Israeli, pro-Israeli movements so far. So just gonna just jump into the app really quickly, and then hopefully we'll get a little quick tour of it. Let's see. So hopefully this works. Okay. Sorry, 1 second. All right, can we see this?
Yes, you're on.
Okay, amazing. So I'm gonna go into the barcode scanner last because I might have to restart my phone for this, but we have a couple extra features on this entire boycotting aspect. So our goal here was to make it so easy that you didn't even have to think about it, like when you were buying something. If you're going shopping, you would figure out all the right alternatives, you'd figure out the right compliance information and so on from there. So just starting off, we have a little campaigns tab where you can learn a little bit more about the different brands, parent companies. We have sources for everything. And you know, you can get informed on your decision making. But what comes after being informed, right? It's really what is the next step? And so that's kind of where the scanning aspect happens. And we'll get into that in a little bit, but you can scan barcodes. It'll show you alternatives. It'll show you the information. So for example, if I just scan an item from Tylenol, you would end up seeing an entire screen that kind of showcases the information. It would showcase the tie to whatever company that you should be boycotting, and then it would give you sources as well too. But we didn't want to stop there, because once you know that you can't buy something, that sucks. But you want to figure out what the next step is. And I think the next step here was, what can I buy instead? And so we started offering community-generated alternatives. So users can submit alternatives to specific items. And right now we're collecting a giant list of alternatives, and then we're going to have them region-based, because something that might exist in the US, but they might not exist in Jordan. Something might exist in Jordan that doesn't exist in like the UK. And so we're going to be tailoring it down to the individual user. But until then, we're just going to have a giant list of alternatives. You can vote on them. You can downvote them if you don't like them. Maybe something tastes really bad and it's not a great alternative. So you can kind of go from there. We also thrive on community support and community run action. And so we have a very community notes style. I'm not sure how familiar everyone is with Twitter, but you're basically allowed to like report tweets for misinformation. You're able to support and submit in sources. And so we thrive off that very similar structure, where if we have misinformation and we have an item that should be boycotted or shouldn't be boycotted based on new news and media or so on from there, you can submit that, you can get voted up, voted down, and you get points for correct information. You can submit alternatives, and you can kind of grow from there. And so we really want to make this type of feed that allows you to be a part of the community, be a part of the boycotting movement, and really see your impact as a community, as a whole, right? But we took it a step further, because we realized that boycotts only last for so long. Like, our goal here isn't for this to end the minute a ceasefire occurs, and then we can start rebuilding Gaza itself, but rather we want to make sure that this is a prolonged action, so that way no other occupier, no other government decides to make some sort of action towards a different country as well too, or even like Palestine specifically here. We want to make sure that this is a long-term goal where no matter what happens, they see that our unity and our power of boycotting, and I don't want to say the word like we direct money, but we definitely influence people to spend their money in the right places. And by doing that, we can kind of shift the way the economy works. And so if a government doesn't want to suffer economically, which is the only language they end up speaking, then they'll think twice before doing anything like this ever again. And so, one, we want to obviously help Palestine right now, but two, we also want to prevent these things from occurring large scale in the long-term future. And so the next step after the what to buy was the where to buy. So we introduced a feature called Zoomies. And the reason it's called Zoomies, a very quick fun fact, was because I have two cats, and they were running around at 3 a.m. when I was developing this, and they were speeding. They were just jumping across everything. I was like, they're zooming. And because we can zoom in and out of a screen, and we can zoom across the map and find really fun alternatives in different places, it's called Zoomies. But here you can look up cafes in your area, and it'll show you all the cafes that are, either unverified, pro-Palestinian, or things you should be avoiding. So if I was to look up Starbucks, for example, we won't even put the address there because we don't want you going there. But we'll show you all the alternatives around Starbucks, so that way it's easy for you to avoid, right? And this is very prominent in the US, UK, because it's a lot easier for us here. But we're definitely expanding out to like pro-Palestinian businesses, because we want to shift the economy into those local businesses as well too. So we're taking 2 steps here at once. Basically, is 1, let's divert from these large corporations, and then 2, let's really push into building up the local economy. And so that way we can promote these businesses that are doing well. So for example, if there are companies that are like, oh, 10% of our proceeds go back to like building Gaza up right after the ceasefire occurs, right? Or so on from there, we can promote these companies, get business in, and increase our donations subconsciously without even having to try anything. Like maybe you can walk down 20 feet more to the left of like your Starbucks, and you'll find a coffee shop that is donating. And so you're getting the same coffee at the end of the day. They all taste the same, I'm sorry. But you're able to actually contribute to something good in the long run. And so while that's kind of our current state right now, where we offer the what, the where, the why, we really want to expand to a one-stop shop in the future. And so a quick little teaser, and no one's ever seen this before, or heard this, but we're kind of moving in a direction where we can really build up the local economy. And so we're aiming to be a one-stop shop where you boycott subconsciously, where it doesn't feel like you have to actively boycott, but you can, move in a direction where you can support the economy around you, and you are actively boycotting and helping the right causes available. But that's going to be, yeah.
I have a question for you. So how can we help? Like, is there a certain like volunteering opportunity like that you need right now? Like the first one that can pop up on your mind right now, something that you need help with that you think someone in the audience might be interested in helping with?
Oh man. I have so many wants, but I guess I'll list the top three, and then we can hopefully go from there. But the first one is definitely any sort of growth help, because our goal here is to get the app in as many people's hands as possible. So any terms of growth engineering, marketing, and that type of realm is super important, because with just 100,000 people, we hit 2-point-something million. With 200,000 people, we've already hit 4.5 million of diverted money. And that's a very small dent in this large scale. I think Paul mentioned like Google doesn't care about $1 billion. But if we're able to continue expanding this and continue shifting that money into local economy, it's huge, right? And so it has like long-term effects. And so we want obviously some growth help, marketing help from there. And then on the third side, obviously any mentorship and scaling this business to be something that it's just self-sustainable, because we don't want to be an app that like dies down in a year when no one cares about it anymore, right? We want to be the thing that continues forward and allows people to, make conscious choices and have that purchasing power back in the individual's hands. So I think that's kind of my biggest want off the top of my head.
Thank you.
Okay, so I would take it from here. So Adil, actually, we have a couple of questions for you. First one, is the app optimized for the US market only?
No, it's actually global. Zoomies itself works very well in the US and UK and AU, because that's kind of where Apple Maps is optimized for. But the entire scanning aspect kind of works globally. So what we actually want people to do, and this is a great question actually, there are often times that an item is not found in our system. And so if all you have to do is type in the brand name, type in the title of the item, and then the next time you scan it, we check it against our database and make sure that it's compliant or not compliant with the campaign itself. So having people going into their local shops and scanning these unknown items to build our database up, so we can help more people. Because maybe, for example, you scan an item, but then 2 days later, someone else is going to scan the same item. Because of your community submission, you're able to inform someone else. And so I think having that community support is very important for us.
Thank you. There's a good question here. So someone spotted a bug in the app, how they can, contribute it back or fix it?
Yeah, so we're very active on social media. I respond to every single DM on every single platform: Instagram, TikTok, Twitter, Discord. We have a Discord server where you can report errors, because we want to make it as very open as possible. And like, we are a developing team. We're not perfect. Like, I taught myself how to code in November, and we ended up building this and launching it in January. So there's going to be bugs, there's going to be crashes, and we're building in public. So our goal here is you can kind of watch us in our journey and also support us in like a good cause as well too. So just reach out any point in time, any platform. I'm happy to help out.
Can we submit a pull request?
I have a bit of a fear of PRs and merging, and especially merge conflicts. So feel free to, I guess.
Perfect.
So actually, we have a lot of questions, but we are trying to, to track the time. So the last one, there is a lot of local business, and they're asking if they can register this actually, by themselves. Is there any way to do this?
We have a way that we're going to launch in the end of April that you can do it within app. And so it's easy. And so it's automatically verified. But for now, just reach out to us on Discord, on our Discord channel, on Instagram, on Twitter, whatever social media you have available, or even email us at boycat.boycat.io on our website, and then we'll be able to like add it in. We just have to verify things manually right now because we're still building out the infrastructure for automatic verification. But yeah, that's the easiest way.
Thank you, Adil. Actually, my 8-year-old, she loves this app and she's using it. So every time, like احنا في market or anything like that, she will, check for, this is, I cannot buy it. So thank you so much for making it that easy for even, for my daughter to use it. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Okay. هحاول اشفت عربي تاني. So الشو كيس اللي بعد كده، انا بحب بويكات جدا طبعا، بس هبطل اتكلم عنها. Let's move on. تاني واحدة NewsCord. I think we have Nima already, right? Nima? Okay. So it's yours now.
Yes, assalamu alaikum. Thanks for having me. Thanks Tech for Palestine for giving me the platform, and for the university as well, of course. So before I show what NewsCord is, I thought I'd give maybe just a bit of background around sort of how it came about. So obviously when the war on Gaza broke out, what especially us in the UK and the US and the West were seeing was sort of BBC, CNN, Washington Post, all kind of echoing the same thing, being really biased and to be honest, like people like myself, we felt powerless, we felt helpless. And I'm sure, many of you felt the same. How can we potentially use all our skills? So like, for example, everyone in the room, mashallah, we have skills that we can put to use, but we just don't know how to maybe. And right now actually is an opportunity for us to not feel so helpless and try to help out. And one thing I was thinking was the news thing, the media bias, and they're so powerful, and it's my genuine belief that it's these news companies that are kind of the catalyst for enabling Israel to do what they've done so far. The dehumanizing tactics and really subtle use of language that kind of makes people think that, yeah, it's okay for Israel to do what they're doing. And that's kind of how NewsCord came about. So NewsCord is kind of a news platform that does news comparisons. So for example, you as the user would go onto NewsCord and you type in a article URL, or you just look for a topic that you're interested in, for example, Palestine. And what it will do is it will find an Al Jazeera article and compare it to Washington Post, CNN, BBC, covering the same story. And then it will use AI, large language models, to find the differences in coverage. So yeah, without further ado, I'll share my screen. Cool. So yeah, so this is the NewsCord website, which is actually about to change majorly. But anyway, we'll stick with what we can see in front of us. For example, and Paul was mentioning earlier the World Central Kitchen story. I'm actually blocked behind a paywall right now on Washington Post, but regardless, we can just copy the article URL and kind of put it into the search bar on NewsCord, and hopefully we get search results. So yeah, so this is what a kind of comparison result looks like. So we've got Washington Post on the left-hand side. It kind of summarizes the article for you, and then it's found several other sources covering the same story. So if we kind of go to the Al Jazeera one, you can kind of see the two summarized side by side, but then you can also compare coverage. So this is the kind of the large language model really going to work now, trying to find differences in wording, find missing information, or find direct contradictions. So in this case, this one I think is the most interesting. So you can see Al Jazeera's investigation found that Israeli army attacks on the convoy were intentional, and this is a significant detail missing in the Washington Post summary. So you can imagine something like this kind of empowers us, the people that are kind of worried about media bias, to kind of, I guess, start gathering evidence, start posting it on social media, or even, if you're having a debate with someone that's potentially not as informed as we are, you can use something like this to kind of to show them. But actually, we want to take it further than that. We kind of we've seen that the current iteration of NewsCord is really good at for people like us that are proactive and want to kind of search for this information. But actually, our target audience is kind of, certainly in the West anyway, are the people that only consume the mainstream media. So how do we change the minds of the people that kind of look to BBC as the source of truth and show them that actually it's not the case and they're not giving you the full story? So it was slowly positioning ourselves to serve as a platform that is long term for people that to serve as a platform so that anyone that questions the media can go to it and interrogate the information they're being fed. So inshallah, it helps with the Palestine situation and kind of holds the media accountable. But we certainly see this as a long-term thing. As sort of the media presence grows and their power grows, we need a tool like this to kind of combat it. And yeah, that's it. It's super
Thank you,
quick.
Nima. The same question, how can we help?
Yeah, so good question. So you asked Adil this already, so I had a head start to start thinking about my answer to this. But I think right now there's loads of things that we need, and hopefully a lot of you join the Tech for Palestine server so we can get in contact and talk. So we have a channel on there. But I think one of the big things right now is growth. So we are seeing traffic on the website, but we want to accelerate that. So, we've got a presence on social media, on Instagram, Twitter, but we want to kind of think of ways to actually grow the organic reach on the website. So anyone that is fluent in sort of search engine optimization, and we realize actually that kind of we're up against it, because Google would probably not want to promote something like this to rank high on the search results when you type in news comparison. So if anyone has time later, like type in news comparisons on Google search, and we will not rank whatsoever. But if you go on DuckDuckGo.com, which is another search engine, we do rank. We're like 8th on there. So that's good, but unfortunately, no one really uses DuckDuckGo as a search engine. So we need the kind of people that have expertise in that area. And yeah, that's kind of the top one, but we've got asks beyond that, really.
Are you considering having an app? Like I see a website now.
Yeah, so that's kind of the next big thing, and for that we will need resources. Is another one. Yeah, you know, any software engineering experience. I'm sure a lot of people in the university have some experience. So people like that can build apps with us. I think certainly that's the next big step for us to have a app.
Perfect.
Hey, thank you, Nima. One of my favorite tab as well, because you know, like احنا نقدر نشوف الفرق. We can see the difference, and it's horrible. So thank you so much for helping us seeing that. Okay, so moving forward, thank you, Nima. So we will have, is it genocide with ZO or Zionism Observer? You can go ahead.
But I know the answer to this. It is a genocide.
It is. Let me know if you can.
I apologize. It's not letting me share my screen. Is there any way someone else could share their screen to a website? Oh, wait,
Yeah.
hold on. I'm sorry. It's a new computer and I have to do the system preferences. Just a second. I apologize.
Yeah, no worries. So until Zio is coming back, احنا عندنا أسئلة كتير جدا. We will answer them by the end of the event, inshallah. So everyone.
And we can always get back
answer,
to the
inshallah.
attendees and with their questions too. So like if you can save those after the event.
Yep. I think we will skip as a genocide for now, and we will come back later for it. Okay, so the next one is this occupied. So Tom will present this.
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Tom. I'm on the management team over at Tech for Palestine. I've been with Tech for Palestine since January, and I'm really excited about this event. So Disoccupied, I'm going to be really brief about these because we don't want to go too over time, but Disoccupied is a website that was created by a husband and wife team, and it is a curated list of businesses that they rank based on ties to Israel. So you can search any brand name, you can find whether or not they're tied to Israel, and then they actually break it down even more granularly. So it's not just like, is it tied to Israel, but it's like, how tight are the ties to Israel? So you have like 4 stars, 3 stars, 2 stars, 1 star. Caution is like maybe they're indirectly connected to Israel, and then do not buy is they're directly connected to Israel. So you can also submit brands here. They're very open about who they are and why they're doing this. If you look at their about page, what their goals are, how they're funded, how you can contribute. And yeah, this is one of the earliest projects that Tech for Palestine actually launched with.
Can you go to the previous screen, please?
Yep.
I really like that under each one, like it says exactly like why, like is it like do not buy or okay to buy? Because usually like these kind of information, like we're not really sure, like is it really how much it is tied? So I really appreciate this.
Yeah, it's really nice. It's Like, for example, the 2-star says these small or medium-sized companies have remained neutral in the conflict and do not have ties to Israel. So that just means that they haven't come out and spoken in defense of Palestine, but they're also not tied to Israel. So you can decide for yourself how important that is to you.
So 4 stars does support Palestine directly?
Yes.
Got it.
Publicly supported Palestine and does not have ties to Israel.
Nice. I like this rating. Okay, is there anything else would like to show us on this one?
No, that's pretty much it. It's a pretty simple app. It's
Okay.
not an app yet, actually. It's just a website.
Just a website.
They're working on building an app to go with it.
Mhm.
So
I know you had another one also that you wanted to present. Do you want to go to that?
yeah, and actually Paul spoke about this earlier. It's October 7th fact check. And this is the one where they just do like a true or false deep dive analysis on all of these events of October 7th that were initially reported to have happened. So for example, 40 babies, beheaded, that is confirmed false. So if you look at it, sorry, it's problematic for me for some reason in this browser, but if you go in there, you can find out, and it has citations, references, all the detailed analysis of these different events, and you can decide for yourself whether they're true or false. They make a determination based on this data. So they also just recently decided to open source this. So there's an actual GitHub repository now for the October 7th fact check website, and you can go there and you can submit a topic or an issue or a challenge, or maybe you think that there is evidence that conflicts with what their determination is. It will all be possible to submit it here, and then everybody who goes back to October 7th fact check. And this has been really well received and is really well done, and it has actually been cited in a couple of national news outlets as a source of accurate information about what actually happened on October 7th. So yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I think like it could be for the link that didn't open. This happens to me sometimes, like when I'm in the US, like sometimes my ISP would just mark a certain site as unsafe, just because it talks like the pro-Palestine narrative. So I'm not sure where you're based, Tom, but this is what have been happening there for that site that you try to open.
I think if you click on the beheaded babies, I think this might work.
Yeah, so
And
it's flagged as unsafe. So
yeah.
Proceed anyway. Can you click proceed anyway?
Yeah, proceed anyway. Yeah.
Yes, there's a link. Proceed
I see.
Yes. Okay, so
Yeah,
it's not that perfect.
I see. Okay. Yeah. So yeah, here's the summary, and then where the claim began, all of the media coverage that they're aware of about this event. I mean, it's really very thorough. Retractions and counterfactual claims.
So it's the research
honestly,
you're looking for, basically.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
All right. Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay. Thank you, Tom. I think we can move forward with the next one, which Zio, is it genocide is ready now?
Yes. Let me just share my screen. There we go. Sorry. Okay, can people see the screen okay?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so if we go back in time to November and December, there was significant debate about whether this was a genocide. And a number of journalists, in fact, would say it was libelous or slander to call it a genocide because it was such an obvious lie. Genocide, of course, is a weird crime because it's not necessarily what gets done, but about why it gets done, the intent behind it. You can do the same acts and they might just be war crimes or they might be genocide, depending on why you do it. And never in human history have we had people leaders of a country express genocidal intent so openly, at least in modern history. And so in November, I built a database because that's what I do for a living. And I built a database and I began collecting statements of Israeli genocidal intent. And then we launched on, I believe, January 2nd, which I just learned is the same day as Tech for Palestine, with a website that looks like this. This is from archive.org. And a lot of people shared it instantly. And someone from Tech for Palestine reached out over Twitter and suggested that I join the Discord. And when I did, a designer joined the team and she created this design that you see today, which is what the website is today. So at the beginning, Zionism Observer was just a database of genocidal intent. But as I began collecting quotes, other categories started to appear, like apartheid and two-state solution, and genocidal intent became just one category among many. And so because this debate was still raging about whether it was a genocide or not, we, with some people I met through Tech for Palestine, decided to create a dedicated website with a subset of these genocidal intent quotes, whereas Zionism Observer might be more for researchers and academics and journalists to explore. We wanted to create something for the public, which we ended up building this website right here. It's a storytelling website. So it is designed to appeal emotionally and not just be a list of quotes. So it addresses the ridiculous allegation that it's anti-Semitic to call it a genocide. And it focuses, you know, in this world where everything's so loud with all the social media and everything like that, this is an attempt to get people into a quiet space where they can actually think about these words and what it means.
Zoe, are you still speaking or are you?
So I'm just going to turn off the music, but we do have music, and these are leaders. These are not random Israelis. This is the person in charge of the IDF. This is the spokesperson for the IDF. This is a member of the Knesset for the ruling party. This is a minister of education. And so these are real quotes. They're pulled from the database. We create an API endpoint for this project. And it is a website that is very shareable on social media and designed to, as our attempt to answer the question of genocidal intent using our database of quotes. And that is sort of the overview of this project. We dedicate it to Aaron Bushnell, who had just immolated a few days before we launched. And yeah, and that's the project. And I'm happy to answer any questions or let the next person go.
Yeah, I would like to comment on it. I actually really appreciate this. When the ICJ ruling like first came out, of course, like this is a big deal in the West where like, is it a genocide? Is it not? And like, especially where like the Israeli are trying to push their narrative. And then like, our Google search, like in the US, is much different than the one here in Jordan, for instance. If I search anything, it's like everything becomes Israeli. Like even like deers in the region, in the Middle East region, are like somehow like they are related to Israel in a way or another. So one time, like a person was asking me, like, can you mention to me like a genocidal quote from Netanyahu? And I was like, I was trying to look for it. So I kept searching and searching for 2 hours and I couldn't find a single one, basically. So I had like to pull up the ICJ ruling PDF file and try to go like through the 83 pages to actually try to find it. So I actually really appreciate this.
Wonderful. Yeah, I hope it's a good resource. And I just wanted to mention here we have 23 quotes from Benjamin Netanyahu in the database so far. And also, I just want to mention this particular database of quotes is, to the best of my knowledge, the most well-sourced quote database or quote website in the world. If you go to a particular quote, you can see the video of the person saying the quote. In certain instances, we're verifying the translation, which you'll be able to see here when we do. But I just wanted to point out, if you ever need Netanyahu quotes, we got you covered.
So how do you need help, Zoe?
So like I said, this is a database that we can build API endpoints for. So if, for example, someone wanted to build a project related to the two-state solution and wanted to pull the quotes, you know, you as a programmer or a designer could do all of the work, and then just ask us for the API endpoint and we'll provide the data for your website or app. Another way is there is a contribute form here on the website. If there's a quote that we're missing on our website, you can contribute it here. And I would say those are the two primary ways we have for people to get involved.
Nice. So we can all like enrich the database. That's cool. Okay. Thank you, Zoe. Hiba?
Yeah, thank you so much, Zoe. Okay, so moving to Samer and Wikipedia collaboration project. Samer, it's yours.
أي مساء الخير، تحيات لكم من جبل لبنان بلبنان. اسمي سامر واليوم راح أشارككم عن مشروع التك فور بالستاين ويكيبيديا كولابوريشن، ويكيبيديا فور بالستاين. بس يمكن الكاميرا خليني بس افتحها.
Yes, we can see you.
تشتغل. Can you see me all right?
Yes, أهلا وسهلا.
أهلا فيكم. أول شيء بدي أخبركم عن المشروع واللي هو الهدف تبعه نشر الوعي وتثقيف المواطن. بداية كانت المواطن الغربي، ويعني والسعي إنه يصير في تضامن أكثر مع الشعب الفلسطيني، والشغل يصير من خلال تصحيح الخطاب والمعلومة اللي بالغالب منقولة بالإعلام، بس نحن تحديدا نركز بمقالات أو صفحات الويكيبيديا، فالتركيز على الويكيبيديا. وفي كمان نقطة مهمة هي محاولة الحفاظ على المعلومة، يعني لما ندونها بويكيبيديا كمان محاولة يعني أحد المنصات اللي في أمل إنه تضل ثابتة وموجودة للمستقبل أكثر من مثلا السوشيال ميديا الثانيين، واللي هي طبعا يعني لمقاومة محاولات محو التاريخ الفلسطيني. فنحن بالمشروع اليوم حاليا حددنا، وهيدي كل يوم عم تتحدث، عندنا 546 موضوع. هالمواضيع يعني ممكن يكونوا مثلا شخصية معروفة، شخصية فنية، سياسية، أكاديمية، ممكن يكون حدث، ممكن تكون مدينة، المجلس البلدي مثلا اتخذ قرار بالمطالبة بوقف إطلاق النار وغيره، اللي هن مهمين كتير إنه نحدث لهم بياناتهم ونكتب عنهم وننشر عنهم ونخبر عنهم، لحتى الناس يشوفوا مين عم يتضامن. وكمان هالشي بيساعد بتثقيف المجتمع، وتحديدا بالذات يعني الفكرة من وراء هو المواطنين أو المجتمع الغربي، نظرا لأهمية يعني أصواتهم بالنسبة للي عم بيصير. فاللي رح نعمله، رح فرجيكم على عرض لفيديو شي 3 دقائق ولكن قبل ما نعمل العرض رح يجي السؤال كيف فينا نساعد. فأنا اللي بنصحه إنه بالدرجة الأولى اللي أي موضوع اللي أنا عم بحكي عنه أو المواضيع الثانية يبدأ بالانضمام للتك فور بالستاين على الديسكورد. هذه أول شغلة، ويصير موجود داخل الكوميونتي ليشوف شو عم بيصير وكيف. الشغلة الثانية داخل الكوميونتي بيساعد أو بيطلب مساعدة، وهذه كتير مهمة. يعني اللي عنده بيكون فكرة صغيرة بيجي على التك فور بالستاين لحالها بتكبر الفكرة، لأنه بيصير يشوف إنه في إمكانيات متوفرة وتعاون وآراء وخبرات بتساعد الشخص يكبر فكرته. وأحيانا إذا هو ما عنده مثلا مشروع محدد بيشوف إنه في كتير فرص بتناسب مع اهتماماته، خبرته، معرفته، مهاراته، إلى ما هنالك. فهيدي بالدرجة الأولى. ونحن كمشروع التك فور بالستاين ويكيبيديا كولابوريشن عندنا اجتماع أسبوعي كل يوم أربعة الساعة 10 حسب توقيت عمان. فإذا بتنضموا للتك فور بالستاين بتشوفوا الإيفنت موجودة، واهلا وسهلا فيكم. وعاده بنعمل حوالي ثلث ساعه اذا في اعضاء جداد، بنعمل ثلث ساعه بعض الفيديوهات بنفرجيهم، بنحكي عن موضوع كيف الشغل بيصير. وكمان في عنا 10 أسئلة، الشخص بيسأل الأسئلة لنفسه لتساعده بيكون تصور أفضل شو ممكن يعمل بالنسبة للويكيبيديا في فلسطين، شو المشاركات اللي ممكن يعملها، شو الخبرات اللي ممكن يحطها أو المعرفة أو الاهتمامات أو الوقت وهلم جرى. فهيدي بتساعد الشخص إنه أنا طب شو في أعمل. عنا هال10 أسئلة بيروح بيمشي فيهم، بيسأل حاله، بيفكر فيهم، وبالتالي بتساعده بأنه يخطي خطوة للأمام باتجاه المشاركة. فهلأ أنا حكيت ما يكفي، خليني أعرض لكم الفيديو وبيشرح فكرة المشروع ومواضيع تانية حاليا بالإنجليزي، وفي حدا عم بيساعدنا نبلش نترجمه ونحوله للعربي أو حتى لغات تانية. فإذا حدا عنده خبرة بالفيديو اديتنج بليز get in touch، وعلى طول بحاجة لهيك خبرات. أوكي، لحظة صغيرة. سوري أنا بدي أعمل شير سكرين بالأول. أوكي.
احنا مش سامعين كويس يا سامر، مش سامع كويس.
سوري مش طالع الصوت؟
لا للأسف احنا شايفين الصورة بس مش طالع الصوت.
I see. أوكي.
تحبني أحاول من عندي أنا أشير من عندي؟
ممكن، وممكن أنا optimize video share sound. أوكي غلطي. أنا بعتذر.
لا ولا يهمك ولا يهمك.
أوكي.
Did you know that Wikipedia can be a tool for peace and justice? The power of Wikipedia lies in its vast reach and the role it plays in shaping public perception. This makes it a significant platform for the Wikipedia for Palestine project. Our objective: to combat anti-Palestine propaganda by providing fact-based contributions. By doing so, we aim to correct the narrative and raise awareness about the plight of the Palestinian people. Remember, Wikipedia is not just an online encyclopedia, it's a battleground for narratives. Anti-Palestine propaganda is not just about spreading false information, it's a strategic communication tactic. It weaves a misleading narrative through various tactics, each designed to alter perceptions and justify actions. Selective framing, for instance, presents information in a skewed light, focusing solely on one side's concerns while ignoring the other's rights or historical context. Whataboutism is another common tactic, deflecting criticism by pointing to unrelated issues. Normalization is a strategy that portrays certain actions as justified and ordinary, while false equivalence treats unequal situations as if they are the same. The victimhood narrative paints one party as the perpetual victim, and critics are discredited by labeling them as biased or anti-Semitic. Cherry-picking history, media manipulation, social media campaigns, and discrediting sources are other prevalent tactics used to sway public opinion. These tactics are not just misleading, they are harmful and contribute to the perpetuation of injustice. How can we counter these tactics? By monitoring, creating, engaging, collaborating, and guiding. Let's dive into these strategies. Monitoring existing Wikipedia pages is crucial. This involves identifying articles on Palestine, Israel, and other relevant topics. We must regularly fact-check these pages for inaccuracies, biased language, or misleading information. Next, we need to create new fact-based pages. This involves researching and writing well-sourced articles on pertinent issues. Engagement is key too. Participating in talk pages, providing reliable sources, and expressing our views can make a significant difference. Collaboration and coordination are essential. Forming teams, sharing insights, and strategizing together can make our efforts more effective. Lastly, guiding people to the truth is paramount. Every edit, every fact-based contribution can help steer the conversation towards a more balanced and accurate narrative. Remember, countering anti-Palestine propaganda is not about promoting a different bias. It's about ensuring information is accurate, fair, and comprehensive. Each correction, each fact-based contribution makes a difference. It's time to put this knowledge into action. Arm yourself with facts and lend your voice to the Wikipedia for Palestine project. Navigate through the sea of misinformation and make a difference by contributing to the narrative, one edit at a time. Visit and let your contributions reflect the truth of the Palestinian plight. Remember, consistent contributions hold lasting value for humanity. Let's shape the narrative while keeping humanity at the forefront.
اوكي، هذا الفيديو بعطيكم فكرة. فبالنسبة لي إذا حدا عنده أي سؤال هلا أو بعدين ممكن نجاوب عليه.
شكرا جدا سامر. المشروع ده في منتهى الأهمية، لأن إحنا سيبنا البلاتفورم ليهم for a long time and we need to do our job now. So إحنا محتاجين كل اللغات، عربي، إنجليزي، أي لغة تعرفها، أسباني، فرنساوي، عبري طبعا. فمحتاجين مجهود رهيب ومحتاجين وقت علشان نبني بروفايل زي ما سامر قال. هي هتاخد مننا شوية وقت بسيط لغاية لما نبني البروفايل بتاعنا في ويكيبيديا، بس بعد كده المجهود ده هيبقى ليه يعني أثر في منتهى العظمة، وإحنا فعلا محتاجين. شكرا جدا يا سامر for leading this، وفعلا إحنا محتاجين مجهوداتكم. even حتى لو عندك ساعة واحدة you can contribute، وهنتكلم أكتر عن الموضوع ده. طيب احنا هنيجي لاخر شو كيس وبعد كده هندخل على الاونبوردنج. شكرا يا سامر. انا هشير السكرين بتاعتي دلوقتي وهنتكلم عن الداتا سيت بروجكت. انا مش هتكلم كتير عن المشروع بنفسي، هو مشروع حد تاني طبعا. مشروع كان بالفعل من واحد من تك فور بالستاين هو اللي ابتداه، والمشروع دوت من ضمن المشاريع برضو الجميلة جدا، لان احنا بنقدر نبني عليها مشاريع أخرى. الفكرة جت إن إحنا مجرد إن إحنا بس جمعوا كل الداتا للشهداء بتوعنا، أو كل الأسامي للشهداء بتوعنا كانت موجودة بالعربي فقط. مجهود كان جبار علشان يترجموها ترجمة إلى حد ما صحيحة، لأن طبعا اسم العائلة والأسامي بتاعتنا مختلفة شوية. وجمعوا كل الداتا ديت وجمعوا كل الحاجات ديت وعملوا لها API سهلة، والاي بي ايز ديت تقدروا ان انتم تجيبوها as a JSON فايل او CVS فايل او even حتى كلينك، وان انتم تقدروا تستخدموها. في مشاريع، في ناس كتير جدا بالفعل بدأت تستخدم الويب، يعني الداتا سيت ديت، ومن ضمنهم اصلا يعني اكتوبر 7 فاكت تشيك اللي احنا لسه شايفينه، وده من اهم المشاريع عندنا في تك فور بالستاين، ومشاريع تانية كتير زي يونيتي فاست وبيرد اوف غزة اللي بول اتكلم عنها. أنا هسيب الكلام لصاحب المشروع وهشغل الفيديو، وبليز let me know لو مش سامعين.
لا مش سامعين.
اوكي اوكي
انت
How about now?
لا لسه كمان. do you want to check your sound?
وأنا سامعاه كويس بس for some reason للأسف الزوم مش عارف يجيب الفيديو. اوكي انا هشيره بعد كده ان شاء الله. هو بس بيشرح الويب سايت وبيقول ازاي نستخدمه، وطبعا يعني متخيله ان لازم يكون في
هبه
setup
ممكن
معين.
ممكن انك لو يعني توقفي الشير وترجعي مره ثانيه وتعمل تشيك للساوند اوبشن. رامي is suggesting.
Okay, let me try this.
If not, we can just walk through it because it's pretty straightforward.
يعني هو انا ما احبش ان انا اضيع وقت اكتر من كده لان احنا بالفعل behind the schedule a little bit.
طب.
So I will share my screen again. وهنروح بس هنجو through الويب سايت وان شاء الله يعني هشير بعد كده الفيديو
أكيد.
باذن الله.
انا بهمني اكثر شيء تفرجينا الجيسون فايل. حلو في الداتا سيت انه يعني everything is exported to a JSON file format. فالحلو بهذا المشروع انه you can build projects over this project, so you can take the data and do with it يعني whatever you want to visualize it. يعني as you go through the website انتوا شفتوا if you can open it please هبة.
هو بالظبط زي ما انتم شايفين كده الويب سايت. دي طبعا فيجواليزيشن للداتا، بس هم بيوروكوا امثله دلوقتي ازاي نقدر نستخدم الداتا دي. كانت من اكتر الحاجات المؤثره اللي عملت تاثير جامد على السوشيال ميديا هو النيمز، اللي هو بيقولوا لك كم واحد تعرفه اسمه علي. اطفالنا اللي اسمهم علي في 77 منهم توفوا او استشهدوا، وهكذا شام. فدي كان من ضمن الحاجات المؤثره جدا. لو نقدر بقى نشوف هنا الداتا سيت ديت ازاي نستخدمها. انت ممكن تداونلودها فهيبقى عندك a huge file of CSV. ممكن JSON file as well. طبعا علشان انا ببريزنت لازم كل حاجه
هو كمان بفرجيكي جوا الابلكيشن كمان جوا الويب سايت if you just navigate through it.
هو هنا الداتا سيت.
أيوة.
دي هنا بيقول لنا لو عايز داتا سيت لحد معين زي الناس اللي استشهدوا. ادي الجيسون فايل. طبعا الجيسون فايل
بليز ويت. للاسف الجيسون
الشديد.
فايل بيطول عشان للاسف
عشان
شهدائنا
شهدائنا كتير.
34,000 الله يرحمهم.
الله يرحمهم يا رب ويتقبلهم. فزي ما انتم شايفين الجيسون فايل بيبقى فيه الاسم العربي الاسم الانجليزي واذا كان ميل او فيميل، ولو في ديت اوف بيرث نقدر نجيبه لان بنكون عايزين نعرف العمر، لان ده ساعات بيبقى مهم جدا طبعا في الاحصائيات. فزي ما انتم شايفين المجهود كان جبار لان ما كانش في اي حاجه كده، فهم اضطروا ان هم يترجموا الكلام دوت بلايبريز هم يا اما استخدموها او كتبوها from scratch. فالمجهود كان جبار، وانا يعني شاكره جدا ليهم بصراحه لان المشروع ده يعني مهم جدا. وزي ما انتم شايفين مجرد URL هنا وبتقدروا ان انتم تجيبوا كل الداتا ديت وتقدروا تستخدموها زي ما انتم عايزين. وطبعا بقى في كذا حاجه تانية زي ان احنا نطلعه as a report، نطلع عدد المتوفين سواء الرقم ككل او رقم الاطفال او رقم الاطفال اللي اصيبوا او رقم كل اللي اصيبوا. ففي تنوع كبير للداتا سيت هنا نقدر ان احنا نستخدمه. اتفضل يا مهند.
سؤال لك يعني I'm just curious من رمضان قديش عدد شهدائنا؟
للأسف الشديد من ضمن الحاجات اللي هم عملوها وكانت برضو مؤثرة جدا إن هم جابوا الأحداث المهمة اللي حصلت في ال7 شهور. فكان مثلا من رمضان لغاية دلوقتي في أكتر من 3000 شهيد. مجرد من الإيستر لغاية دلوقتي أكتر من 1500 شهيد. فطبعا هي مأساة بكل المقاييس. فطبعا دي بتبين صعوبة الموقف اللي احنا فيه.
So I can see the New Year Eve يعني I think يعني that's around the time يعني when Tech for Palestine started. So let's see like كنا 20,000 هلا يعني 14,000 since Tech for Palestine has started.
وعلى فكرة هي دي الأرقام اللي أعلنت من جهات رسمية، فهم بيحاولوا ان هم يكونوا دقيقين جدا في الداتا اللي هم بيحطوها. فما ما بيحطوش اي داتا من اي ويب سايت غير الويب سايتس الرسميه. ولكن انا متخيله ان الرقم ده للاسف الشديد للاسف ده اكبر من الحقيقه للاسف الشديد.
I can see percentages كمان للاطفال منهم وللنساء and it changes
كل
as
وقت.
well.
بالضبط زي ما انتم شايفين هنا. ف يعني هو عظيم، وهم طبعا محتاجين مساعدتكم ازاي تقدروا تساعدوا. الجيت هاب يعني الريبو بتاعتهم اوريدي هي بابليك. طبعا تقدر تساعد بكذا طريقة، سواء إن لو لقيت في مصدر رسمي للداتا بليز قول لهم عليه. لو عندك وقت بليز ترجم وصلح الترجمة بتاعت الأسامي، خاصة اللاست نيم أو الاسم العائلة. إحنا عايزين نحتفظ بأسامي شهدائنا ونعظمهم، فعايزينها تبقى دقيقة على قد ما نقدر. الداتا دي بتتحدث يوميا، فانتم متخيلين المجهود اللي محطوط على يعني اعبائهم طبعا، لان هم بيشتغلوا ومعظمهم اصلا اكشلي اجانب. انتم متخيلين يعني. طبعا شكرا جدا ليهم، بس احنا we can take this actually واحنا نقدر نقضيتها ونقدر نبقى احسن كمان في الترجمه. وطبعا نقدر نطلع داتا سيتس مختلفه، فكل دوت تقدروا تساعدوا بيه.
أنا بدي أضيف فكرة هنا. قبل أسبوعين يعني I was presenting بإفطار لجوسا، ف we presented the data set. بعدين إجا علي واحد من الطلاب بالجامعة فبحكي لي ليش ما نعمل فكرة مشروع إنه الأسماء اللي بتطلع على الجو فند مي عشان يلموا التبرعات للعائلات المنكوبة في غزة، وطبعا في أشياء ممكن تكون مش حقيقية أو كذا، نعمل ماتشنج بينها وبين الداتا set هاي. حكيت له no, this is a great, it could be a great idea. You can go inside the Discord channel and suggest your idea. As I was saying earlier, انك انت ممكن تقترح افكارك وتصير تبني مشروع فوق مشروع with your just creative ideas and the efforts.
بالضبط، احنا نقدر نعمل مليون مشروع ونقدر نستفيد من الداتا دي. بالضبط. فده مثلا كان مشروع اتعمل بالضبط في خلال اسبوعين، كله from A to Z في Tech for Palestine. كان بمناسبة رمضان ان احنا بنقول للاجانب ان يعني you can pledge او يعني تصوم بالنيابة. انه طبعا ما فيش صيام بالنيابة، ولكن تقدر ان انت يعني تصوم وتدي يعني
هذا another project.
بالضبط. فكان كل اللي حاصل ايه، ان احنا استخدمنا اللاست نيم، فجبنا كل الناس اللي بنفس اللاست نيم او بنفس اسم العائلة عشان نبين حجم المأساة. فتخيلوا ان ده اسم عائلة واحد بس مات منها كل دول، وطبعا في اكتر واكتر كمان. وكنا بنقول ممكن تقدر ان انت تصوم يوم او 30 يوم. توم عندنا هنا صام 30 يوم لاحد من شهدائنا، كان شيء نبيل جدا منه. في مليون الف حاجه تقدر تتعمل بالداتا سيت طالما ان احنا معنا الداتا.
هلا بعد
طبعا.
رمضان في ست البيض، فاللي بيحب يهدي صيامه لأحد الشهداء that would be great على هاد
اقل حاجه نقدر نعملها طبعا. بالظبط. فطبعا دي كلها مشاريع تقدروا ان انتم تشوفوها اتعملت من الداتا سيت ديت، اتعملت باستخدام الداتا سيت ديت. فالمشروع ده مهم جدا، فيعني كان لازم طبعا نهايلايت المشروع. طيب احنا كده خلصنا البروجكت شو كيس. فمهند، انت حابب نبتدي بقى بالاونبوردنج؟
Just briefly, what's the most important channels in the Discord? طبعا هبة she does weekly orientation على الديسكورد channel. يعني كلاتكم should have access now to Discord. If not, the ushers as you're walking out they can help you with this, because بعرف ممكن يكون مرات عائق هذا الإشي. There's also a volunteer form where you can add what is your skill set and so on. So إذا ما عبيته please عبيه، لأنه this is how we can like hook you in بالمكان الصحيح. فهبة, if you just can show us like just a brief look on Discord, like 2 or 3 channels that are most important عشان الوقت بدناش نتأخر على الجميع, that would be great.
طيب زي ما مهند قال، مهم جدا الفولنتيرنج فورم، واحنا عملناها علشان اجابه لسؤال من اللي شفتهم هنا، ان كان بيقول مش كل المشاريع ينفع انها طبعا تبقى بابليك علشان السنسيتيفيتي بتاعت الداتا، ساعات الناس بتتعرض طبعا للريتاليشن وحاجات زي كده. فاحنا بنموف من ان احنا كل حاجه تبقى بابليك اون ديسكورد على ان احنا بنقدم الفولنتيرنج فورم دي وبنبني داتابيز ديت الداتا اللي فيها تبقى محفوظه محدش يقدر يطلع عليها، ولكن علشان نعرف مور انفورميشن يعني نعرف معلومات اكتر عنكم، فهنقدر نعرف الايميل ادرس، لينكدين بروفايل لو تحب ان انت تشارك، فنقدر نبقى واثقين اكتر في الناس اللي احنا بنتعامل معاها، ونقدر نخليكم تساعدوا في المشاريع ذات أهمية أكبر شوية من ناحية السكيورتي. طيب هموف فورورد على طول
بس one point because people are wondering if we're still going to be doing a Q&A. رح يكون في Q&A للي بيحب يضل موجود، يعني احنا موجودين. You can go ahead please.
طيب ديسكورد طبعا انتوا عندكم اللينك زي ما مهند قال، تقدروا ان انتوا تدخلوا وتشاركوا. اول ما هتدخلوا هتلاقوا في كده المفروض حاجه صغيره جدا، هي دي اللي انا احبكم ان انتوا تروحوا ليها. المفروض ان انتوا لما هتروحوا للسيرفر جايد، لو انتوا لسه جداد، هيظهر عندكم ثلاث خطوات. اهم خطوه انا عايزاكم ان انتوا تعملوها هي ان انتوا تروحوا للرولز تشانل. الرولز تشانل ديت من الاخر فيها الفولنتير فورم لينك، وفيها نفس الحاجات اللي في الفولنتير فورم هتلاقوها هنا تاني كرولز للديسكورد. فانتوا اتس اوبشنال ليكوا، هيبقى يفضل دلوقتي ان انتوا تختاروا كمان الرولز ديت، سواء مثلا لو كنت سوفت وير انجينير، لو تعرف باك اند، لو تعرف ويب ديزاين، اي حاجه بالمنظر دوت. وطبعا هنا تختار البروفيشن بتاعك، سواء بتعرف تعمل فيديو اديتنج، اي حاجه تقدر تساعدنا بيها تقدر تختارها من هنا، ودي هتتحط للبروفايل بتاعك على ديسكورد. احنا ان شاء الله شغالين دلوقتي ان احنا هنأوتوميت كل الحاجات اللي انتوا هتختاروها في الفولنتير فورم، هتبقى دايركتلي ان شاء الله ابلايد على ديسكورد بروفايل بتاعك. بس احنا دلوقتي لسه في البروسيس بتاعه المايجريشن، فلو تحب تساعدنا انك تحط الداتا بتاعتك هنا until we are making it automated، يعني 100% automated، this will be great. فدي اهم حاجه. طبعا الرولز هنا دي من ضمن الحاجات المهمه اللي انت لازم تعرفها، وتعرف ازاي ايه هي الحاجات اللي احنا بنعتمد عليها في الكوميونتي بتاعتنا هنا. من ضمن الحاجات المهمه جدا انك دي الاف كيوز، فدي الاسئله المهمه اللي انت ممكن تكون عايز تعرف اجابات عنها. فبليز جو اهيد للاف كيو هنا في السكشن اللي تحت انفورميشن، في الكاتيجوري اللي تحت انفورميشن، and please try to read as much as you can. لو عندك اي استفسار in general، في مكانين هنا او two channels، اللي هو الجنرال، لو ده سؤال بسرعه وعايز بس تسال الناس وتجيت انفولد معاهم. ولو انت عندك توبيك معين عايز ان انت تفتح discussion من خلاله، you can go to general chat، ودي forum channel you know like page، so you can start a new post. طيب الحاجات المهمة اللي احنا عايزين نجو ثرو، لو انت خلاص عملت كل حاجة and you joined ومليت ال volunteering form، you can go here and see the volunteering board. ال volunteering board دي you can it's like a big sticky board you know like sticky notes. فأي حد من أصحاب المشاريع اللي انتوا سمعتوا عنها النهاردة، أو أكتر من almost 50 مشروع بيشاركونا دلوقتي محتاجين أي مساعدة، لما بيحبوا يحتاجوا مساعده في حاجه معينه، هيفتحوا بوست هنا على الفولنتيرنج بورد. الفولنتيرنج بورد ديت تقدر هنا تدخل تشوف مين اللي طالب وطالب ايه بالظبط، وفين الشانل بتاعتهم اللي تقدر تكلمهم عليه، وايه بالظبط اللي هم طالبينه. فتقدر طبعا تفلتر زي ما انت شايف هنا باي حاجه، يعني مثلا مجرد ان هم عايزين داتا كولكشن، ان انت تساعدهم ان انت تجمع الداتا او تجمع البيانات من كذا مكان، فهم هيقولوا الكلام دوت، وهيقولوا ايه هي الارجنسي بتاعه التاسك ديت، وهتاخد وقت قد ايه. فانت تقدر بمنتهى السهوله لو انت عندك ساعه او ساعتين تقدر تدخل تساعد مشروع ممكن يحقق طبعا يعني بيسمع عندنا بره وبيسمع في كل الناس، وطبعا انتوا متخيلين طبعا اهميه حاجه زي كده. فده الفولنتيرنج بورد، دي من ضمن الحاجات المهمه جدا. لو عندك فكره جديده وعايز حد يساعدك في ان احنا نعملها، او عايز مجرد ديفلوبر، عايز يو اكس، عايز اي حاجه، تقدر انك تبعت الفكره دي هنا وتشوف الناس هتتجاوب ازاي. هل الفكره دي اتعملت قبل كده؟ من ضمن الاسئله اللي شفتها ان كان في ناس بيقولوا طب ما احنا عندنا اكتر من ابلكيشن للبايكوت للبي تي اس، ايه الهدف؟ من ضمن الحاجات اللي بنحاول نعملها ان احنا نعمل لهم سنجل داتا سيت، يبقى عندنا داتا سيت واحده لكل الحاجات بتاعت المقاطعه، فنقدر ان احنا نجمع، يبقى عندنا داتا بيز واحده نجمع فيها كل اسامي الناس اللي احنا محتاجين نقاطعهم. ومش مشكله يبقى عندنا كذا ابلكيشن بيو ايز مختلفه عشان الناس مختلفه، وان هم يقدروا يستخدموا نفس الداتا سيت ده. فالفريش ايدياز اتس فيري امبورتنت اند وي ويل جيت باك تو ات. اخر حاجه خالص، لو انت بالفعل عندك مشروع وعارف كل حاجه عنه ومحتاج ان انت تخليه as part of Tech for Palestine، تقدر تدخل هنا على submit project، او مجرد انك هتدوس يعني هتكليك هنا على submit project هيفتح لك تيكت. التيكت ديت هيقول لك please you know like fill the form او fill the template، والتمبلت هناخدها احنا بعد كده وهندسكاس معاك البروجكت دوت، وهنشوف ايه اللي انت محتاجه ونقدر نساعدك ازاي. دي اهم اماكن. اكتر من كده ممكن تسالنا طول الوقت. لو عايز تكومينيكيت مع التي اف بي اورجانيزيشن هتلاقيها تحت public tfp.org. كل الشانلز اللي هنا دي public، وتقدر انك تدخل لو عندك مشكله في الاونبوردنج ابعت لنا، في مشكله في المودريشن، مشكله في او عندك افكار للكوميونيكيشن او اي حاجه، او ويب سايت ايفن. سو بليز 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 يعني ريتش اوت تو اس، واحنا موجودين معظم الوقت 24 ساعه من كل بلاد العالم actually.
شكرا هبة. I was just informed إنه إحنا معانا للساعة 7:30 so like we have 13 minutes left. بس عارف ال Q&A is very important، فضفنا على ال QR code تبع الفيدباك، حطينا كمان another question إنه Q&A. ف if anyone has a question that we don't get to, please submit it and we will get back to you على Discord, or if you provide your email, like we would be able to reach back to you there as well. I think we can take a question or two before we wrap up. Please go ahead. And thank you هبة.
بعرف إذا سامعيني.
Yes.
أول شيء I'm very emotional هلا وأنا عم بحكي. عم برجف حرفيا من جواتي. الست اللي حكت إنها بتحكي مصري، أنا ستي مصرية وستي الثانية لبنانية. You should hear our family speaking together at home. However أنا بدي أحكي لكم إنه بتمنى لو إني عرفت عن Tech For Palestine من قبل. شكرا جزيلا لكم. شكرا دكتور إسماعيل. أنا أخت شهيد وحفيدة شهيدة. هذه صورة أخوي اسمه منهل أبو حرب. هذا الموضوع ما بدأ ب7 أكتوبر. هذا الموضوع كلياتنا بنعرف إنه بدأ عام 1948. For the record, if you're recording this, he was 7 months old, and yes, والله العظيم he was a civilian. نفس الشيء ستي الله يرحمها. He was بحضن ستي لما استشهدوا. Having said that, أمي باحثة قانونية من 20 سنة حاولت إنها ترفع قضية. طلبت بالقضية 3 شغلات، قالت راحوا مني 3: أمي وابني والوطن. بدي استرجع اي شيء من هدول ال3. حاولنا وقت احداث فكر بانه نرفع قضيه وما قدرنا because of lack of information. I can't thank you enough. بس
Thank you for sharing. والله يرحم الشهداء.
بتمنى to educate the people بالجامعه اكثر واكثر عن شو الصح وشو الغلط. I know you teach life skills. Teach them what's right and what's wrong and how they can express it. شكرا جزيلا.
Thank you for sharing. أي سؤال تاني أو حتى أونلاين كمان هبة إذا please.
مش سؤال، هو كومنت. خالد الأصفر طبعا أكاديمي هندسة ميكانيكية. بدي أحكي إنه الجامعات اتدمرت، بطل في جامعات، والمدارس كثير المدارس طبعا اتدمرت يعني. فالآن الجيل هذا اللي يعني بدها سنوات قبل ما تنبنى مضبوط. فهل ممكن يعني إنه نعمل شغلة يعني تعليم عن بعد؟ يمكن هو ما تبي ان اوبشن يعني. بس هذا اللي حبيت احكيه، لانه مشكله اساسيه يعني. one of the objectives كان من الانفيجن كان تدمير التعليم بكل مستوياته، تعليم اساسي، تعليم عالي الى اخره. بس يعني واعتقد كثير ناس دي كان فولنتير يعني، ما في مشكله.
شكرا لك. فكرة جدا رائعة، ويعني أحد الأشياء اللي ممكن تنطرح على Tech For Palestine. أنا كنت بحكي مع دكتور معتصم اللي هو كمان مشكور، يعني if it wasn't for him this wouldn't have happened، وكان بيحكي معي بصميم هذا الموضوع إنه يعني حتى في أحد الحاضرين من أصدقائي يعني كان منزل على اللينكد إن هذاك اليوم إنه بده يتبرع بمهاراته إنه فعليا يعلم الناس، فإنه كيف فعلا إحنا to educate، إنه في دور كل الأساتذة والدكاترة بيقدروا يلعبوا دور جيد فيه، وحتى الخبراء بالمجال اللي هم موجودين فيه. فأكيد فكرة رائعة جدا. بالنسبة للدراسة، هلا بعرف أنا كمان إنه بول مهتم بموضوع توظيف المؤهلات في فلسطين، الفلسطينيين اللي يقدروا يجيبوا قوت يومهم، هم يقدموا خدمة وتعطيهم equivalent for that basically salary for that. فعم نحاول نشبك إنه also hiring Palestinians too. both between education and hiring هيك انت بتقدر تنهض في مجتمع يعني مكان هم مش محتاجين حدا. وللاسف فعلا يعني غزه رجعت سنين لورا يعني وان شاء الله الله يعمرها وهي بتنعمر بايدينا اكيد عمو.
أنا كنت عايزة أضيف حاجة لأني شفت السؤال اللي عمال يتكرر. بليز يا جماعة، أهم حاجة نقدر نساعد بيها، إحنا بنحاول دلوقتي نجمع بعض، إحنا كلنا عندنا نفس الهدف، والحمد لله إحنا بنعمل ده لوجه الله. فإحنا مش زيهم مثلا بناخد فلوس علشان ننشر خبر أو so please اشتركوا على تويتر وعلى انستجرام وعلى يوتيوب شانلز بتاعت تك فور بالستاين ونوت فور ابارتايد والناس اللي بيساعدوا القضيه، لان احنا بيحصل لنا كتير ان احنا بيحصل لنا شادو بان، فحاجاتنا ما بتعرفش توصل للناس. سو بليز ساعدونا ان احنا نوصل كل المشاريع اللي انتم شفتوها دي واكتر كمان. فانشروا، اعملوا تويتس، اعملوا بوست، اتس اب تو يو. ما فيش اي حاجه، احنا خلاص يعني للأسف وشوشنا خلاص اتعرفت. ربنا الحافظ، ويا رب كله في سبيل الله وفي سبيل تحرير اخواتنا يا رب ان شاء الله وارضنا.
شكرا هبه. احنا كمان حطينا على الطاولات اللي برا، حطينا كمان الانستغرام شانل، اللينكد ان والاشياء اللي تقدر تنشروا عليها. يعني زي ما بتحكي المقوله، اذا لم تستطع ان ترفع الظلم على الاقل اخبر الجميع عنه. ويعني المعلومه وصلت لعندك عن تك فور بالستاين، احكي لاصحابك، احكي للمبرمجين بالشغل بالمدرسه بالجامعه عشان تنتشر المعلومه والكل يقدر يساعد. اخونا بتقدر تفضل.
أشكرك يا مهند.
احنا مش سامعينك.
أشكرك يا مهند، أشكر بول بيجر أو بيجر على تيك فور بالستاين. حقيقة الوضع الحالي هو أنه في عنا إبادة جماعية في غزة، وعندنا تقريبا 43 ألف شخص انقتلوا، هذول أبرياء مثل طفل الست هون. حقيقة الفلسطينيين يعني عم بموتوا بشكل يومي أمام شاشات التلفاز بشكل لم يكن مسبوق في التاريخ. ويعني أي واحد عنده أي حس إنساني، حس بالأخوة، حس بالنصرة، حس بأنه هدول البشر لازم نحاول نساعدهم بأي طريقة. اليوم مش لازم تكون أنت فلسطيني حتى أنك أنت تتحرك عشان غزة. اليوم يعني وبكل محبة أنت فقط يجب أن تكون إنسان. موضوع التكنولوجيا هو موضوع يعني معقد، وحقيقة التكنولوجيا ضد الفلسطينيين، التكنولوجيا العسكرية ضد الفلسطينيين، تكنولوجيا السوشيال ميديا ضد الفلسطينيين، تكنولوجيا الإعلام ضد الفلسطينيين، تكنولوجيا بإيد أفراد، وهدول الأفراد نوعا ما تم التحكم في رأيهم وآرائهم حول الفلسطينيين وحول القضية الفلسطينية. ويجب أن نعمل بشكل مستمر ليس فقط من الجانب التكنولوجي، ولكن أيضا من جانب تغيير المفهوم العام بالتعاضد، بالأخوة، بأن تعرف من مجتمعك، وأن تعرف من المحيط حولك، وأن تقوم بإنشاء علاقات حول العالم. أنا اليوم جيت وقعدت يمكن أكثر من ساعتين وربع، وأنا فعلا يعني مؤمن أنه بول بيجر قام بدور جيد، قام هذا الشخص الأيرلندي بدور جيد أنه أسس تيك فور بالستاين، أنه قام بدوره كإنسان من أيرلندا. وبالتالي يعني أشكركم على هذا الإيفنت، وأشكركم على بناء علاقات وروابط مع الشعوب حول العالم. وإذا بختصر باللغة الإنجليزية بس بجملة أو جملتين إذا الشباب من برا بسمعوا. Thank you very much for your initiative. Today what happens in Palestine is a genocide, and you don't have to be a Palestinian or a Jordanian, an Arab or a Muslim to act. You just have to be a human. So we support you. Thank you very much. We support your stand for Palestine. This year is the elections year, and make sure that not only your work in technology matters, but also your vote and how you influence decision-making in the world. Also make sure that if you make a technology contribution, it's impactful. We don't want to waste your time in the wrong direction. Make sure that your time is in the right place to make sure it has the maximum impact. Thank you very much. and thank you مهند.
أشكرك إحنا لأنه معنا 4 دقائق I'm gonna يعني close up from here. شكرا لكم جميعا. إحنا رح نحاول إنه يكون هذا هو بداية الحوار مش نهايته. للي بنضم لديسكورد احنا حتى رح نعمل زي ميت اب جوردن في الديسكورد تشانل عشان اذا بدنا نعمل سيشن تانية اذا في حد عنده مشاكل بالديسكورد اتسلف او حتى نتناقش. يعني احنا اليوم انتم سمعتوا منا، احنا المره الجاي احنا بدنا نسمع منكم ايش في عندكم افكار، ممكن نعمل برين ستورمينج مع بعض. زي ما عمو هون حكى لنا عن فكره التعليم وهكذا، ممكن فكره على فكره والشاب حكى عن الاس اي او احنا محتاجين كذا، فممكن يطلع فكره اكبر لما بنحط عقولنا كلياتنا مع بعض، ممكن يطلع إشي احسن واحسن، وهي بالاخر يعني بريك اوفر بريك بصير بناء كبير. فإن شاء الله بجهودنا وسواعدنا بتصير. وشكرا لكم على حضوركم وعلى اهتمامكم، يعني هاي قضيتنا we need to do something about الجينوسايد اللي عم بتصير. للأسف لأنه بعد 6 أشهر لسه الموضوع ما وقف، وبالعكس it's just getting escalated. فلمتى رح نضلنا ساكتين؟ لمتى رح نضلنا قاعدين؟ It's time to take action. Let's make it happen. Thank you.